Welcome to the Defence Property Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things property investing and real estate for Australian Defence Force personnel. Whether you're looking to build and scale a property portfolio or relocating across Australia, we've got the insights and tips for less stress and more success. Let's dive in.
And welcome back to another episode of the Defence Property Podcast. We've got an exciting episode today. It's just myself, no special guests, but we are talking about 5 decisions that are quietly costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity cost. So most people who get property wrong don't know that they got it wrong until it's too late. They buy a house, it goes up a little bit, they feel fine, but somewhere else there's a parallel version of that purchase, same budget, smarter decisions, and that version made $150,000, $200,000 or more. The gap is called opportunity cost. And today I'm going to talk you through 5 places it silently destroys your wealth for everyday Australians buying property. So every dollar you spend or you don't spend on property is a dollar that can make or break your portfolio. Bad decisions aren't just about losing money, they're about the money that you never made. So none of these require you to do something dramatic. Most of them are pretty much safe feeling decisions, and that's what makes them so dangerous. So let's go through the 5, and I'll guarantee that most of you would have at least heard some of these or be familiar with them. So the first is the waiting game. I'll wait for a better time. I'll wait for a bigger deposit. I'll wait for interest rates to cool off. The waiting for a better time trap. Every market cycle has people waiting for a crash that doesn't come or comes, 6 months before the recovery is even harder. The perfect example is people that sold in 2018, 19, 20 with the intent to buy back shortly afterwards, and they waited as prices grew dramatically in 21 and 22, and then eventually they become priced out of the market and they couldn't buy back in. So the people who waited in the 2020 COVID is going to crash property, they missed out on 40, 80% of national growth over the next 18 to 36 months. A better time to buy is almost always visible in hindsight, but almost never in real time. The better time was almost certainly in the weeks, months, or years prior to today. So the best time is always today. Markets don't announce their bottoms. The bottom is silent, but full of opportunity. So this is kind of like the bigger deposit trap. I'll save until I've got a bigger deposit. That might be from 5% to 10% or 10% to 20%, so I don't have to pay lender's mortgage insurance. But saving an extra $30,000 while a property appreciates $60,000 means that you went backwards by $30,000 in real terms. You don't even need, and you don't even feel it because your focus is on the bank and not the prices going up. The lender's mortgage insurance calculation, people agonise over paying a $15,000 premium for lender's mortgage insurance. If the property that they brought went up by $40,000 by the time they save that 20%, that's not a win because you've gone backwards by $25,000. Time in the market beats time in the market. You've heard it for shares and it applies here too. But we at Discover Buyers Agency believe that in time in the market, you can have the best of both worlds. Just time your entry to the right market. So if you've been waiting and you then get a car salesman-like experience, if someone finally convinces you now's the right time, watch out for what they put in front of you. If it's a house and land package, it's probably lining their own pockets with it. The second mistake, taking advice from the wrong table or the wrong people. Mum and dad, my mate just brought in. Nobody in your life gives you property advice wanting to hurt you. The problem isn't their intentions. The problem's, their methodology, their data, and what was right for them and worked. Maybe not necessarily out of great execution, but more luck. So mum and dad bought their house 25 years ago in a suburb that they lived in. That suburb has already had its day in the sun. The dynamics have changed. What worked back in 2010 might not work in that area in 2020 or 25. The population growth, the infrastructure, the proximity to jobs, have all been fully priced in. Recommending it now is like recommending a share after it's already boomed. Or a friend who killed it in a property with recency bias. They brought in a strong market, it went well, now that makes them an expert, or were they just lucky when they brought in that area? Ask them what comparable sales they did. Ask them what the vacancy rate was when they brought. What was the supply data like? What was the stock or market percentage, or the inventory, or the building approval ratios? Ask them what the affordability index was sitting at. They're giving you social proof, not due diligence. The most expensive advice is free advice from well-meaning people with no professional obligation to be right. They comes with the best intentions, but not necessarily the best structure behind it. House and land packages or off-the-plan purchases from sales groups often receive undisclosed commissions from developers. So they're even worse than the advice from mum and dad that are uneducated, because they're lining their own pockets with commissions. The third, picking the wrong property market. Getting the wrong market costs you in growth that you never see. Property is hyperlocal, but most people don't think it's hyperlocally enough. Look at the last 12 months in Perth, 24%, Melbourne, 3%, same country, same interest rate environment, wildly different outcomes. But what are they both going to do over the next 2, 3 or 5 years? Someone who bought for $700,000 in Perth a year ago is sitting on roughly $169,000 in growth. Same $700,000 property in Sydney, $23,000 growth. The difference is a staggering $145,000, and that's opportunity cost. You don't feel bad about your Sydney purchase because the property is still worth more than what you paid for it, and you can't see what you missed out or you didn't get. So what drives market selection? Population growth. There's international and interstate migration, supply pipeline or the lack of supply and scarcity of the asset, infrastructure spending, checking this on a per capita basis, not just a total project value, and days on market and listing volume. It's all the data that's really going to uncover the potential of the area. A supply saturated market can be one of the most damaging markets. So always looking at the building approval ratios of an area before buying there. And this is the core problem when buying a house or land package in an outer suburban estate. The developer releases stages 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, sometimes 2,000 lots in the same estate. You buy in stage 1, filling ahead of the market. For stage 4, there are hundreds of identical properties on tiny land being sold by the developer at the same price that you paid. And there's no comparable sales to support. Your competition isn't the broader market, your own estate. The supply saturation kills your growth. Supply is the enemy of growth. The fourth, buying the wrong asset. A white elephant in your portfolio can hold you back for years as it quietly underperforms. The right market, wrong property. This one is sneaky because you can be directionally right in the right market and still lose. Buying a bad property in the right market, you've got to check your heritage overlays, your unusual configurations, commercial zoning, flood mapping, bushfire mapping, body corporate issues. These properties often get overlooked for people searching just based on price without doing proper due diligence. The market has already priced in the problem and you just don't see it and you miss out. The asset also needs to be what tenants and future buyers want. This is resale and impacts your yield. If you buy in a market that's got a high percentage of housing commission, your tenant might move in. After 12 months, they say, bugger this, we're moving out, because the percentage of housing commission might be 15%. You're up for another letting fee, another vacancy period, and more advertising costs, which is all going to impact your cash flow of your investment. Also, the house to land ratio can impact it. People want a backyard, and land is what goes up in value, and the house depreciates or loses value. We know this because the ATO allow you to claim it as depreciation, but you pay that depreciation back. So buying a property there's a brand new house on it is generally going to underperform because the land is what goes up and the house loses value. It's not new and shiny the day after you buy it. It's then secondhand. So paying attention to your house to land ratio for your total purchase price is critical. Depreciation is a trap because it often gets pushed or sold as great tax benefits, but only while you hold that property. And the depreciation is essentially a tax benefit for making a loss. You are losing on the value of that property. So the ATO allowing you to claim it back. And finally, overpaying. So many people go into a purchase of a property and don't fully understand the market value of that property. They don't use comparable sales. They find the property online. It's listed as contact agent, and they don't understand that the agent's job is to be the best friend of the buyer to then get the best result for the vendor. And people go into negotiations blind, not knowing where the line in the sand is that they need to pull out. Understanding an asset's value before commencing the purchase is critical to get it right. Overpaying by 50, 40, 30,000 too much can compound to a lot of missed opportunity over the time of holding that asset. Keeping in mind the agent's trained and has many tricks in their playbook to make you pay as much as possible for that property. So understanding comparable sales analysis to anchor your price before you commence negotiations is critical. Understanding similar properties in the similar areas and the same street, what they've sold for, giving them a rating, superior, similar, inferior. Not what they're listed for, but what they actually sold for, and understanding the market heat so you can adjust the properties accordingly. The listed price versus the sale price are very different, and we can look at a data point called vendor discount to identify this. And this is a great data point to understand the trend of a current market. If properties are getting listed at $500,000 and they sell for $495,000, that's a 1% vendor discount. If they sell for $505,000, that's a 1% premium that you pay. But it's not just the reference to the specific data point because, for example, many properties will sell for premiums in South Australia because they typically get listed quite light on the advertised price and sell for premiums, whereas in Queensland they might sell closer to the list price. But it's the trend line of the vendor discount that's important. What was it doing 12 months ago compared to what it's doing now to help paint the picture of that market? Coupled with our supply and demand metrics, our affordability, we can understand the market heat that we're buying in and how to adjust our line in the sand of where we see fair market value and where we let a property go. And the last is emotional attachment to a property. This is the agent really wants to leverage on any emotional attachment they can see. If you really love a property and you're approaching it emotionally, the agent knows people buy emotionally and discount logically. So once they've got you on an emotional journey, they know that they can get a premium out of you when buying that property. So stick to your checklists and stick to your data points and don't buy emotionally, and you can protect yourself from paying thousands too much. So bringing it all together to recap, spending time on the sidelines, whether that's waiting for interest rates to decrease, whether that's waiting to get from 5 to 10 or 10 to 20% deposit. Lender's mortgage insurance is just the cost of doing business. If we have to pay $15,000 in lender's mortgage insurance to hold a $700,000 growth asset where we can expect long-term averages of 7%, it's just an opportunity to do business. Spending time on the sidelines very rarely makes sense when we're looking to buy real estate in Australia with leverage of a loan so we can control a $700,000 asset for $100,000 of savings. Taking advice from the wrong people, whether it's mum and dad, uncle Bob and Aunt Betty at the family barbecue, or it's a car salesman-like experience from a house and land property group, taking bad advice from people that aren't acting in your best interest, or they may have great intentions for you, but they're not professional in their advice, can really be damaging to your portfolio. Picking the wrong market. Personally, I've seen people that have held property markets for 10, 15 years with no growth, and I've seen other people buy in markets where they've doubled the value in 5 years. So picking the market can have a huge compound effect on your portfolio. Between getting it right and wrong can be hundreds of thousands. And then buying the wrong asset, whether it's flood impacted, housing commission impacted, on a main road, power lines hanging over it, all these things are going to impact your yield while you hold the property and your resale ability. And then finally, overpaying and not understanding fair market value for a property when purchasing. So you want to buy at or under fair market value, not paying premiums for your property. And this is going to compound during your portfolio and holding the property. So there's 5 key opportunity costs when building a portfolio and buying property. If you want to reach out to discuss any of these, discoverbuyersagency.com.au, book in for a free chat. It won't cost you anything, no obligation, and hopefully you'll learn something. And we'll speak soon.